Hello, welcome to the Is It Just Me podcast. I am your host, Dr. Angie Inch. This podcast will entail truthful, transparent conversation about everyday life and the lessons learned. This podcast is for everyone from teenagers to the elderly. Although some topics may be rated R, every conversation is based on living life and learning life lessons. On this episode, we're going to discuss double standards. Before each episode, I like to state this disclaimer that I am not an expert and everything discussed is the independent opinion and reality of myself. Let's get into double standards. Growing and going through life, I have met so many people who have so many double standards. But what is crazy is that double standards really starts from your parents. I can't say everyone was raised the same because everyone was raised different and have their own experience in being raised. But I know parents have a bunch of double standards. And before we talk about the double standards that our parents have, let's get a basic definition of what a double standard is. So, a double standard is the application of different sets of principles or rules for situations that happen. So, things that happen, or an incident, or something that transpires, the rules don't apply the same to everyone for that same type of situation. Like your principle change depending on the person or who it is. And people who have double standards, they live by the mantra of what's good for them, but it's not good for you. So it's like a situation where you would have someone that says, "Oh, you can't smoke cigarettes because I hate the way cigarettes smells," but they smoke cigarettes. So a lot of double standards that we tolerate sometime as an adult, we were taught to tolerate because we were taught from our parents that double standards are okay. That leads me to when our parents used to tell us stuff like, "Do as I say, not as I do." And it's like, you telling me that you don't want me smoking, but you smoke cigarettes every day. You telling me don't have sex until I get married, but you having sex and you've never been married. So those are just like some basic double standards when there's a bunch of double standards that people tend to have. And the thing that I don't like about individuals who have double standards is they want to make everything about them and how you made them feel, but refuse to acknowledge the role that they played in a particular situation or in a relationship. And that just bugs me out because I never understood how you want to be treated nice. We're going to use being in a relationship as an example. You want your mate to be faithful to you. You want your mate to do nice things for you. You want your mate to respect you, but you in turn do the opposite to them. You're not faithful to them. You don't respect them. You don't do things for them. And then when it's brought to your attention, you flip it and try to make it seem like, oh, that's not the case. It's a double standard. You can't be in a relationship with someone and want them to be faithful, but you're cheating. I mean, you can be in a relationship and do that, but I'm saying it doesn't make it right. I mean, you can do what the fuck you want to do, basically, but doesn't make it right. And I live by this mantra, and I always say that my grandmother always taught me, and my mother always taught me to treat people how you wanted to be treated. But as I got older, I realized that mantra wasn't actually fair for the type of individuals and the type of people that I was dealing with because I was treating people nice and they were taking my kindness for weakness. So then I learned no, I have to treat people how they treat me. So my thing is, if you do something to me and I turn around and I do it back to you, you can't be mad because you did it to me. But individuals with double standards will be upset, highly upset, if you do them how they do you. And it's like, you can't be serious. When you have double standards, you're putting unrealistic or unfair expectations on others, but you don't hold yourself to those same expectations. That's just like somebody who wants a good friend. I always say, in order to keep a good friend, you have to know how to be a good friend. And there's a lot of people out here who do not know how to be good friends. But if you know that you're a good friend, you need to treat those people who don't know how to be a good friend to you accordingly or cut them off because it's not going to work well in your favor if you're surrounded by individuals who are not treating you how you treat them. I was always the one that I overlooked a lot of things in relationships and friendships because when I grew up and being that I raised myself, it was just me. I tend to not anymore, but before, I used to tend to hold on to those relationships because I valued the bond that I shared with certain people, even though those people weren't treating me how I treated them. But it makes me understand people that have double standards are not fair people, because you can't expect someone to do something for you or treat you some way and you don't treat them that way. And I always say, I'm a genuine person. I have a good heart. I don't mind helping nobody. I don't mind giving. Like, that shit never mattered to me. But it seems like I was always attracted individuals that knew that I was a good-hearted person and always wanted to use me, but in turn wanted to make it seem like I was a bad person. And let's be clear, I was not always the most positive person, and I was very toxic and very negative at one point in my life. That's the difference between me and a lot of people. I can own my shit. I know the type of individual that I was. I know the type of things that I was doing. I know that I was something else, but I was always a good person. So my temper and my attitude, I've always had that, but I always was a good person. There's nobody that's walking around that I ever was a friend to that can say I crossed them. But I can say there were individuals that I was a friend to that weren't a friend to me that crossed me. Now, what's crazy with people who have double standards is that they always find excuses for themselves, but want to play the victim. So it's like, you want to sit here and you want to say that you do all these things and you did all these things and you take no accountability for the things that you did and you're the victim, but you're not owning your shit. You want someone to be loyal to you, but you're not loyal to them. You want a good friend, but you're not a good friend. You want a good wife or a good husband, but you're not a good wife or a good husband. How is it that you expect to attract those things from those individuals when you don't put that out there? I'm not saying bad people don't attract good people. I'm not saying people who are unfaithful don't attract faithful people. But the thing with people who have double standards is that they lie and twist the narrative to get people to believe them and to be on their side because they don't want to face the reality of the truth of a situation. When you have a double standard, it's something that you don't want to deal with. So it applies to someone, but it doesn't apply to you because you deep down don't want to deal with that issue within yourself. So it's something that you might feel like is it shouldn't happen, and you wholeheartedly honestly know that you shouldn't do it, but because you don't want to deal with your own feelings or your own insecurities for that situation, you turn it and you flip the narrative to try to make it seem like it's someone else, when in all reality it's you and your double standards. When people have double standards, they always desire to be right. I'm not that person. I know that I'm wrong sometimes. I can own that I'm wrong sometimes. There's nobody walking the face of this earth that's always right. You have to know who you are and accept who you are and be okay with that. But it's a lot of people walking around with these double standards that don't even like themselves because they can't be real with themselves. They're living a facade. They put up this facade like there's something that they're not. But something that my mother taught me when I went through a situation with some individuals that I thought were my friend, which my mother was telling me the young lady wasn't my friend, but I overlooked that. She always said the reason that the true her came out was because she could no longer pretend. She said, Muka, people pretend well. And it got to a point to whereas she could no longer pretend. So when I think about that, I think about people who have double standards because it's like you're putting up this facade and you're pretending that you're something that you're not so that you can attract genuine good people. And you pretend for so long until you can no longer pretend. But how is it that you think you having those double standards is going to be accepted by everyone? Because see, what happens is that people become content. They become content in the relationship that they build with people. For some individuals, it's because they value the relationship, they value the time. They might feel like you've been in a relationship for so long and they dedicated so much time to this relationship or this friendship. So they overlook a lot of stuff and they take and they deal with your bullshit. I'm not that person because I don't mistreat people. So I'm not allowing anybody to mistreat me. Double standards is all about being able to live by the same principles or rules or standards that you want other people to live by or abide by that are in your life. You can't want somebody to be against premarital sex, but you're engaging in premarital sex. You can't want somebody who's faithful, but you're unfaithful. I mean, you can want whatever the fuck you want. Let's be clear, but it doesn't make it right. Anybody walking the face of this earth can live their life how they see fit and how they choose. The thing with double standards is that the individuals who have them and who constantly live by them, they're incapable of admitting their mistakes or shortcomings. So anybody who you are in a relationship with, you're in a friendship with, and you notice that they have double standards. So a set of rules don't apply to everyone the same. So it's like if I do something, oh, it's taboo and it's, oh, she shouldn't have did that. But if somebody else does something, you make an excuse or you find a reason to justify their behavior. That's a double standard. And that's because you don't want to admit something in that situation or something in that relationship or something in that incident made you realize that you're incapable of admitting your mistake or your shortcomings based on that. So you're going to change the way that you see things. And a lot of individuals who have double standards are passive aggressive individuals. And passive aggressive individuals are individuals who they don't stand firm on anything. They want to agree with everybody, but then they turn around and they give a different narrative, or their story change with the weather. As soon as the wind blow, if the wind blow to the left, they going to the left. If the wind blow to the right, they going to the right. If the wind blow up, they going up. They don't stand firm on anything, and they have double standards. They throw the rock and hide your hand. Me and those type of individuals don't get along at all because I own my shit. Don't throw no rocks and hide your hand with me. Be firm and stay what it is and state it. We either we'll talk about it and we'll get through it, or we'll have a talk about it and you go your way and I'm gonna go mine. But individuals who have double standards, it's a defense mechanism for them to suppress their insecurities. So it's okay for them to do it, but it's not okay for you to do it. And it's like, no, that's not how life is, and that's not how life works. And a lot of people who have double standards are unwilling to face the responsibility of their choices and the consequences of their action. Those type of individuals are the type of individuals that do not take accountability. If you are unwilling to face the responsibilities of your choices and the consequences of your actions, you're the type of individual who does not take accountability. Taking accountability doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to admit that you're wrong, because 9 times out of 10, you're probably not always wrong. But have you been wrong before? Yes. But at the end of the day, to take accountability is basically you standing firm and you stating, you know what, I know the role that I played in this incident, or I did X, Y, and Z. And I know that this is my part and I take ownership of my part. But individuals who have double standards have not gotten to that level where they're able to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I understand. That's my fault. My bad. That goes back to them and their own insecurities. They're not willing to deal with their own insecurities or their own mistakes. And 9 times out of 10, they're not happy with their life. They living in a facade. They're putting up a facade for everyone, for individuals. They tell half truths because they don't want you to know the whole story. Because if you know the whole story, it's like, oh, you letting me know what really happened. And somebody is going to be able to say, okay, I can see why the situation happened because you did so and so. So instead of them owning their shit, taking accountability for their shit, they twist and they turn the story and they switch the narrative. And when you switch a narrative and you're not telling the whole story, you're basically lying, because you do know when you switch a narrative, that is lying. If you're not telling the whole story, you're lying because you want other people to back you or to be on your side for a situation. Now, if you are the type of person who have double standards and you're switching narratives, that just lets me know that you know that you're wrong and you know that you have double standards, because if you wholeheartedly feel like you're right about something and you stand firm on a decision that you made and the choices that you made, you're going to stand firm in that shit no matter if you got 10 people on your side or 2 people on your side. And I tell people all the time, I'm a one woman army. I don't give a fuck if don't nobody agree with something that I believe firmly in. If I firmly believe in that, I'm standing on that shit dolo by myself, because that's how I genuinely feel. You're not going to get me to change my mind because you got 30 people that agree with you and I have nobody. I stand firm on what the fuck it is that I stand firm on. And I'm not changing because you got more people on your side. Those are the type of individuals that want to put the narrative out there because they want people to pick a side. Individuals who have double standards. They want somebody to pick a side. They want to divide and conquer. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. And to have double standards, and I'm not saying that everybody at one point in their life probably didn't have a double standard, but that's not a good characteristic to have because you're not being real with yourself. I'm gonna use this as an example. You didn't finish high school, but you preach to your kids that they got to finish high school. I wouldn't consider that a double standard because there could have been reasons or situations or family situations why you didn't finish high school. But when you have a double standard and you say, well, I expect my mate to be loyal to me, but you cheating on your mate, that's a double standard. So certain things that individual might be like, oh, it's a double standard, it's a double standard. Sometimes it's not a double standard. Like with the not finishing high school example that I use, that's a learning lesson. You didn't finish high school, but for whatever reason, and you know how hard you had it by not finishing high school. So now when you have your children, you're going to push for them to finish high school because you know how hard you had it. So that's not a double standard. That's you trying to teach your kids to learn from your mistakes. That's different. A double standard is this is for you. I'm telling you that this rule is only for you, but I don't have to follow that rule. Or I'm telling you this is how I want you to live your life, but I don't have to live my life that way. Those are double standards. That's like individuals who preach no premarital sex and no drinking and no gambling, but they do all of the above. Those are double standards. How is it that you are against this individual having premarital sex and this individual drinking and this individual gambling, but you do the same thing? Not only is that a double standard, but you're a fucking hypocrite because you can't put unrealistic expectations on others that you don't hold yourself to those expectations. That's a double standard. I do people how I want to be treated, even though sometimes people don't treat me how I treat them. I'm still not going to turn into a person who mistreats people because I've been mistreated by someone. I'm just going to be very selective with the individuals that I allow in my life and that I allow around me so that I know that they're genuine to me like I'm genuine to them and we treat each other the same. It's reciprocated. How I treat you is reciprocated in the way that you treat me. If you okay with being a fucked up friend and you talk about your friends to your other friends and you tell your friends business and you do all of those things and you okay with that, then you should be open to people doing it to you. You can't expect people to be a loyal friend to you and not talk about you and hold you down behind your back, but you're not doing the same for them. Those are double standards. It can't be you got mad because she said something about you, but you saying something about somebody all the time. I don't never get mad about anybody saying anything about me because you can say what the fuck you want to say, just like I'm going to say what the fuck I want to say. But at the end of the day, if I said something, I'm standing firm. Well, yeah, that's what I said. You're not going to ever be able to take something that I said to someone, especially if it's a friend of mine, and tell them because 9 times out of 10, I already told my friend. Me and my friend already had that conversation. I'm not that person that you could come to me and sit down and we're going to have a whole powwow and talk about my friend. We're not doing that. Everybody that know me already know that. You're not coming to me talking about nobody. Nah, I don't want to hear that. It is what it is. I don't want to hear that. But then you'll have a friend that'll sit there and entertain all the negative talk about you, but then want to come back and bring that bone to you. I always say, be careful of a dog that bring a bone. Because why did that person feel so comfortable sitting down, having this elaborate conversation, bad mouthing me with you? What does that say about you? I don't have anyone that can sit here and say, that's a friend of mine, that can sit here and say, oh, she was talking about me. No, anything that I said about my friend, I said to my friend. You cannot walk around having double standards thinking that everyone is supposed to be so loyal and treat you so good and you treat people shitty. You can't have these unrealistic expectations for others that you don't have for yourself. One thing that I always say is you can't be real with nobody if you can't be real with yourself. How is it somebody going to look at you and take you to be a real bitch or a real nigga when you can't even look in the mirror and be real with the person that's staring back at you? If you can't be real with yourself, you can't be real with nobody else. How do you expect someone to be real with you if you can't be real with yourself? How do you expect somebody to treat you one way, but you treat them another way? Individuals that have double standards, you have to work on it. I'm sure there's some counseling, or you just have to learn to be real with yourself, to self reflect, take ownership and accountability of your shit, and move on. Can't be real with nobody if you can't be real with yourself. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Is It Just Me podcast. I will be on vacation for the next couple of weeks, so I will not be airing another episode until the first week of September.